They hid the most powerful force inside you and called it a myth. From the moment you were born, the world taught you to look for answers outside yourself, to chase meaning through noise, and to trust systems that were never designed to set you free. But there's something ancient inside you, something real, a dormant force at the base of your spine, coiled like a silent serpent, patient and waiting. They said it was just a metaphor, mystical nonsense, or worse, dangerous. Yet, across thousands of years and countless civilizations, this very energy keeps showing up, whispered about by mystics, pharaohs, and seers. Everyone talked about it. Everyone respected it because they knew, awaken it, and everything changes. This isn't just about meditation, chakras, or New Age ideas. It's about truth, the raw, electric, undeniable truth. And once you experience it, your life changes forever. For centuries, humanity has been taught to seek power outside itself, through religion, governments, institutions, and gurus. But what if the greatest source of power has always been inside you, sleeping, waiting to be awakened? Kundalini isn't just a spiritual idea discussed in yoga studios or written about in obscure books. It's an ancient energy technology, living intelligence woven into your very biology. It's been honored by mystics, hidden by empires, and misunderstood by the modern world. Not because it lacks truth, but because it holds too much. If this force were fully understood, the systems that profit from your confusion would collapse overnight. Kundalini isn't about belief. It's about experience. It's the primal life force coiled like a serpent at the base of your spine, ready to rise through your energy system, sparking a total shift in perception, emotion, and awareness. The ancient yogis of India mapped it in detail long before neuroscience had even developed. They described the chakras not as symbols, but as energy gateways, each tied to stages of human growth, psychological evolution, and spiritual awakening. They didn't just imagine this, they lived it. But over time, that knowledge was buried. Colonial conquest, religious dogma, and institutional fear worked together to strip the sacred from science and label the inner experience as superstition. Even the serpent symbol was twisted. In yogic tradition, the serpent stands for raw energy, transformation, and the path to enlightenment. In Western theology, it became a symbol of evil, something to fear, avoid, and condemn. The very image that once guided seekers to higher awareness was turned into a tool to keep people spiritually immature. What better way to control people than to convince them their own awakening is dangerous? What better way to suppress the sacred than to make it forbidden? And yet, the energy never left. It waits quietly inside all of us. You don't have to be a monk or a mystic to carry Kundalini. It's already inside you, built into your body, your breath, your nervous system. The only question is, will you access it? It doesn't ask for followers. It calls for truth seekers, people willing to shed false identities and face what lies beneath. That's why it's not taught in schools. That's why it's absent from scientific journals and traditional spiritual circles, because it doesn't come from obedience. It breaks obedience. Once this force starts moving inside you, it can't be controlled by fear, silenced by conformity, or distracted by superficiality. You begin to see with new eyes, think with fresh clarity, and feel with deeper intensity. But you have to approach it with respect. Kundalini isn't passive. It magnifies what's already inside you. If you're grounded, clear, and humble, it can lead to profound change. If you're reckless, self-centered, or unprepared, it can amplify confusion. That's why many traditions guard it behind rituals, discipline, and inner purification, not to keep people out, but to make sure they're ready. Because when the serpent rises, it brings not just light but everything, the repressed, the hidden, the unresolved. And that's where the real work begins. So ask yourself, do you really want to wake up? Not just to the light, but to the full truth of who you are and who you've been conditioned to be. Because that's what Kundalini does. It's not an escape from reality. It's a dive into its deepest layers. And once it starts, there's no going back to sleep. Kundalini isn't a buzzword, a metaphor, or some invention by mystics to sell you a course or a momentary spiritual high. It's real, alive, and already within you. But what it is, and what it isn't, has been distorted, watered down, and misunderstood for centuries. What you've probably been told about Kundalini is just the surface, and sometimes completely wrong, because the truth doesn't fit neatly into modern spiritual marketing or textbook psychology. The truth is, Kundalini is the pure, raw energy of consciousness itself, an ancient biological intelligence encoded in human form. At its core, Kundalini is your life force in its purest state. It's not your personality, your thoughts, or your habits. It's what fuels them all. It lies coiled at the base of your spine, in a place called the Muladhara chakra in yogic philosophy. But this isn't just symbolic language. It's a spiritual anatomical code. It rests there, intertwined with your nervous system and endocrine responses, silent but ready. And when it wakes, it moves not randomly or chaotically, but through the subtle structure of your body, activating every part of you that was asleep. Your intuition, your perception, your emotions, your memory, even your biology. But here's where it gets tricky. Not Kundalini itself, but what we've been taught to believe about it in much of the modern Western world. Kundalini is sold as a product. You see it on magazine covers, in workshops promising instant enlightenment, in classes that claim you'll be activated after a weekend. That's not awakening. That's performance. True Kundalini awakening isn't a one-time peak experience. It's a process, and it's often not glamorous, neat, marketable, or something you can just post on Instagram, because real awakening means being torn apart. It means everything false inside you falls apart. It means letting go of the carefully built image of who you think you are, what you believe, and even what you fear. That's what Kundalini does. It breaks down the illusion of who you were so it can reveal who you've always been. It's not a rush of euphoria or some mystical high. Sure, those might happen along the way, but they're not the point. Kundalini isn't here to entertain you. It's here to transform you, and transformation isn't usually comfortable. This energy exposes everything. Your pain, your trauma, your attachments, your ego. That's why it's been protected in sacred traditions with strict discipline. It was never meant to be mass-marketed. It was meant to be respected. And no, it's not just for monks or gurus. It's for anyone with a nervous system and a soul. But it asks for something most people aren't willing to give. Total honesty. Not just with others, but with yourself. Because this energy doesn't respond to performance or spiritual showmanship. It doesn't wake up just because you wear white clothes or chant mantras. It awakens when you're truly aligned. It comes when your inner world is calm, steady, and open. It happens when the noise of your life no longer drowns out the signal of your truth. Kundalini is not a shortcut, not a quick path to wisdom. If anything, it's a fast track to everything you've been avoiding. That's why people who awaken too soon or without guidance often feel confused, emotionally overwhelmed, or physically uncomfortable. Not because Kundalini is dangerous, but because it magnifies everything that hasn't been healed yet. It doesn't let you hide. And if you've been hiding from yourself for a long time, that exposure can feel like a storm. But that storm is sacred. It clears the way for something real. When Kundalini moves, it doesn't just change how you feel. It changes how you live. It demands your full presence. It rewrites your relationship with your body, your thoughts, your choices. It burns away illusions. What's left is an illuminated, embodied, fully alive version of you. Your true self awakened. There's a myth that awakening Kundalini is like flipping a switch, a sudden moment of bliss, ecstasy, and enlightenment. But the truth is much more subtle, much more real. When this energy starts to stir, it doesn't knock politely, ask permission, or care about your schedule. It moves in waves, powerful, unpredictable, and deeply intelligent. When it does, your body becomes both temple and battleground. Some feel intense heat rising up their spine, like their bones are glowing inside. Others tremble uncontrollably, not from fear, but from a force too strong to hold back. You might feel pressure in your forehead, strange tingling in your limbs, or sudden waves of emotion out of nowhere. You might cry, laugh, shake, or collapse in silence. These aren't signs of losing it. They're signals that something deeper is awakening. Kundalini doesn't come through logic. It comes through surrender. And that's why the process can be so tough. Because surrender terrifies the ego. It means giving up control, certainty, and all the labels and stories you built to feel safe. When Kundalini moves, it doesn't care who you think you are. It only cares about what's real. It pushes your shadows to the surface. Unhealed pain, buried shame, beliefs you outgrew but never questioned. All of it comes up. That's what most people don't expect. They come looking for cosmic fireworks and instead get hit with a flood of repressed emotions. But this is the real initiation. Kundalini awakening isn't always beautiful. Actually, much of it is raw, confusing, and even painful. You might lose interest in things that once obsessed you. Relationships might fall apart, not because of cruelty, but because they were built on versions of you that no longer exist. You might feel lost, disoriented, disconnected from the world. This isn't failure. It's transformation. You're not going crazy. You're shedding the identity you built to survive in a world that never taught you who you really are. And yet, even in the chaos, there are moments so pure, peaceful, and inexplicable that you know something divine is happening. A peace that doesn't make sense. Clarity that cuts through years of noise. A connection to everything and nothing at once. These glimpses keep you going. They aren't rewards, they're reminders. Reminders that pain has a purpose, that you're not being destroyed, you're being rebuilt. The problem is modern spirituality rarely prepares people for this. It sells awakening as a product. A state of euphoria, a performance, a badge of honor. But Kundalini isn't impressed by how spiritual you look. It's moved by how honest you are. Are you ready to face the parts of yourself you've denied? Willing to feel what you've numbed for years? Ready to let go of everything that keeps you small to find the real you buried beneath layers of conditioning? That's why ancient traditions required discipline before initiation. Not to exclude people, but to protect them. Because once the energy starts to rise, there's no going back. You either grow with it or get consumed by your resistance. That's why preparation matters. Your body needs to be strong enough to handle it, your mind ready to witness it, and your soul willing to let go. Some awakenings unfold slowly, like a slow burn over years. Others hit like lightning, sudden, shocking, undeniable. There's no single map, but the deepest truth is your soul already knows what's needed. Your job isn't to control the process, but to make yourself available. Quiet the inner noise. Sit in stillness, build awareness, so when the energy knocks on your door, you can open it with reverence, not fear. Because at its core, that's what Kundalini is. A return to reverence. Not for tradition or rules, but for life itself. The divine spark pulsing in your spine, waiting to be remembered. It doesn't need to be chased. It needs you to be ready. And being ready doesn't mean perfection. It means truth, presence, courage. Kundalini doesn't just wake you up to a higher world. It wakes you up to this one. To the sacredness of your body, your breath, your emotions, your pain. It wakes you up to everything. And that's why it changes everything. Long before the word Kundalini was written in English, ancient civilizations were already working with it, honoring it, and building entire spiritual systems around it. They didn't call it energy like we do today, but they knew exactly what it was. They felt it. They lived by it because they understood what we've forgotten. That inside the human body lies the key to transcending the human condition. That power was never out there. It's always been within us. In the ancient yogic traditions of India, Kundalini was seen as the sacred feminine force. Shakti, sleeping, waiting to awaken and reunite with Shiva, the divine masculine seated at the crown. This wasn't myth. It was sacred science. The whole system of chakras, nadis, mantras, and mudras was designed to support this inner awakening. Practitioners trained for years, sometimes decades, in silence, discipline, and devotion. Not for status, but to prepare the body for this transformation. They weren't chasing escape. They cultivated the ability to hold divine energy in human form. But India wasn't alone. Symbols appear across all cultures, on every continent, for thousands of years. Too consistent to be coincidence. In ancient Egypt, the uraeus, the snake rising from the pharaoh's brow, wasn't just decoration. It symbolized awakened consciousness, the coiled serpent energy rising up the spine to activate the third eye. The Eye of Horus wasn't just protection, but a map of inner vision. The caduceus of Hermes in Greek tradition, two serpents entwined around a staff, is almost identical to the Ida and Pingala channels in yogic anatomy. And in early Gnostic Christianity, long before church councils rewrote history, there were whispers of the sacred feminine, Sophia, as the source of inner divine wisdom. This knowledge was never limited by geography. It was encoded in symbols, hidden in myths, passed quietly through generations of mystics, healers, and seekers. But over time, something shifted. As power centralized, truth fractured. Those who held this knowledge either guarded it in secret schools or stole and distorted it. The feminine was demonized. The serpent became a symbol of evil. The sacred body became shameful, and the divine energy inside us was pushed into the shadows. Not because it wasn't real, but because it was too powerful. Colonialism didn't just conquer lands, it conquered consciousness, tore apart indigenous knowledge, dismissed it as primitive, and replaced it with control, not liberation. Western psychology labeled spiritual experiences as disorders. Religion pushed the divine outside ourselves, and science, brilliant as it is, cut the soul out of its investigation. What was left was an empty version of humanity, rational, controllable, and disconnected from its inner fire. Yet the symbols survived, hidden in plain sight. In sacred texts, ancient art, mythology, architecture, the spiral, the serpent, the staff, the eye, the tree. All metaphors for the same thing. Energy rising, consciousness evolving through the human body. The story was never truly lost. It was just buried beneath layers of dogma and distraction. Now, slowly, it's coming back. Not through institutions, but through individuals. People are feeling it stir again. In dreams, sensations, spontaneous awakenings. They're remembering what their ancestors lived. That we were never meant to stay asleep. That this life, this body, this breath, they're all part of the design. You don't have to become someone else to awaken. You need to remember who you were before you forgot. The hidden history of Kundalini isn't just about the past, it's a mirror for the present. It shows us what was stolen and what still lives inside us. It reminds us that the upward journey is ancient, sacred, and built into the very structure of being human. No matter how long it's been suppressed, twisted, or commercialized, truth has a way of coming back. All it takes is one thing, someone ready to receive it. If Kundalini is the serpent, the chakras are the gates it passes through, and the nadis are the hidden rivers carrying its fire. This isn't abstract mysticism. It's energetic anatomy mapped by sages thousands of years ago, with a precision modern science is just starting to glimpse. The body as we know it isn't just flesh and bone. It's a multi-dimensional field of consciousness, and Kundalini systems are the blueprint to activate it. There are over 72,000 nadis, subtle energy channels, crisscrossing the human system like an invisible web. Of those, 3 are most vital: Ida, Pingala, and Sushumna. Ida runs along the left side of the spine, linked to the moon, the feminine, the cooling force. Pingala runs on the right, connected to the sun, the masculine, the heating force. But the real mystery is the Sushumna, the central channel running up the spine. Kundalini ignites through this channel when inner balance is right, when duality dissolves, and when the mind stops blocking the flow. As the serpent ignites, it pierces the chakras. spinning energy centers at key points along the spine. But this isn't decoration for Instagram. Each chakra is a complex interface between mind, body, and soul. The root chakra governs security and survival. The sacral rules emotion and creativity. The solar plexus manages identity and will. The heart holds compassion and connection. The throat governs truth and expression. The third eye opens vision and intuition. And the crown at the top is the gateway to the divine. Here's what few will tell you. Awakening the chakras isn't about color visualizations or repeating affirmations. It's a process of dismantling. When Kundalini activates a chakra, it not only energizes it but clears out whatever blocks it. That's why people report intense emotions, vivid dreams, and physical sensations. These aren't side effects. They're signs that old programming, emotional repression, trauma, and limiting beliefs are being burned away. Kundalini isn't gentle. She doesn't whisper. She cleanses. Each chakra connects not just to a physical organ or emotional theme, but to a stage of life development. The lower chakras relate to early childhood, our sense of safety, emotional bonds, and individuality. If those stages were disrupted, neglected, or manipulated, energy gets stuck there. When Kundalini reaches those centers, she pushes trapped energy to the surface so it can be faced and healed. Only then can she rise. That's why the journey isn't a straight line. You don't just move from one chakra to the next like climbing stairs. You spiral, you circle back, you revisit. One moment you feel expanded and radiant. The next you dive into old wounds. This sacred cycle of purification continues until energy flows freely, not just up your spine, but throughout your whole life. Because the goal isn't to escape the body, it's to bring light into it. It's not about ignoring the human experience, but illuminating it from within. When all chakras are awakened, aligned, and balanced, not just in theory but in real life, Kundalini reaches the crown. This isn't the end. It's the beginning of a new way of being, one where you think not just with your mind, but with your whole self. A way where intuition is as sharp as sight, and love stops being just an emotion and becomes a state of consciousness. This is what mystics meant by enlightenment. Not floating away, but fully arriving here, embodied, awake. You are not a mistake. You're not broken. You're a layered being carrying impressions and energy across lifetimes. And Kundalini knows the way home, not because it was taught, but because it's encoded in you. The chakras aren't just portals. They're your story, your map, your key. And the moment you stop chasing power outside yourself and start caring for your inner temple, that story begins to wake up. For years, talk about Kundalini was limited to temples, ashrams, and secret circles of mystics, dismissed by mainstream science as fantasy or spiritual metaphor, too mystical to be real, too ancient to be credible. But things have been shifting. With advances in technology and new tools to measure subtle energy, science is beginning to encounter the truths yogis have been speaking about for thousands of years. It can't be ignored anymore, because what they called prana, chi, or kundalini now shows up in fragments as electromagnetic fields, neural activity, and bioelectric charge. The language may be different, but the reality is aligning. Your body isn't just a biological machine. It's an energetic system, alive, responsive, intelligent. Every cell pulses with energy. Your heart gives off an electromagnetic field measurable feet away. Your brain operates not just chemically but electrically, firing frequencies that shift with your state of consciousness. This isn't fringe science. It's measurable fact. And it brings us closer to understanding how something like Kundalini could exist, not as myth, but as a form of energy the West just hasn't named yet. Brainwave patterns offer important clues. Most people live in beta, the alert, thinking, doing state. But when you relax, meditate, or get deeply creative, your brain shifts into alpha, theta, or delta waves. These slower rhythms open access to the subconscious, emotional release, and deep insight. During intense spiritual practices or spontaneous awakenings, many report entering gamma states, high-frequency brainwaves linked to bliss, unity, and heightened perception. What mystics call divine union, science records as altered neural activity. Kundalini seems like a biological upgrade, amplifying perception, reshaping emotional responses, and heightening sensitivity to energy. Studies in neurotheology and transpersonal psychology are starting to confirm what practitioners have known for ages. Spiritual experiences leave physical marks. Breath changes blood chemistry. Meditation reshapes brain structure. Trauma release rewires emotional patterns. A bridge is being built, and science is starting to cross it. Then there's the nervous system, especially the vagus nerve, often called the nerve of the soul, which links the brain to vital body functions like heart rate, digestion, and breathing. It plays a key role in emotional regulation and is very active in people with deep meditative or spiritual practices. Many Kundalini symptoms, tremors, shifts in breathing, waves of joy or fear, mirror what happens when the vagus nerve activates. This isn't a coincidence. Ancient teachings describe this same process using the language of their time. What we now call neuroplasticity, they saw as energy transformation. Some researchers have looked at Kundalini in relation to the spinal cord and cerebrospinal fluid. This fluid bathing the brain and spine isn't passive. It pulses, carries nutrients, hormones, and, some say, information. Certain meditation techniques aim to move this fluid intentionally, stimulating the pineal gland and enhancing perception. The serpent rising may be closer to a real energy and fluid dynamic in the spine than we realize. Of course, science still struggles with what it can't measure or replicate. Kundalini doesn't fit neatly into a lab experiment. It's not one size fits all. It's personal, unpredictable, deeply intimate. But that doesn't make it less real. It just puts it beyond the reach of today's reductionist thinking. And maybe that's the point. Maybe Kundalini exists to break not only the molds inside us, but the ones around us. Maybe it's here to remind us that life is bigger than equations, and consciousness isn't just a brain byproduct, but the field from which the brain arises. You don't have to choose between science and spirit. The real path is integration, not blindly following tradition, not worshiping intellect as the only authority. Kundalini lives in the space between. She's proof of a body enlivened by consciousness and consciousness grounded in form. The more we listen, watch, and align, the closer we come to the ultimate truth. The universe isn't out there. It's inside you, waiting to wake up. From the moment you're old enough to sit still and raise your hand, you're taught what to think, what to memorize, what to believe, but never the truth about the energy pulsing inside your own body. You're never told you carry a force that can awaken your higher self. Why? Because systems based on control don't benefit from self-aware, self-regulating, spiritually sovereign people. True awakening causes disruption. It creates people who question authority, reject false stories, and stop living for outside approval. That's the last thing a control system wants. Education as it stands was never meant to free you. It was designed to shape you, to prepare you for industry, obedience, and predictability. Sit in rows, follow directions, raise your hand to speak. The curriculum might change, but the system stays the same. What's missing in almost every classroom is a conversation about consciousness, energy, breath, perception, about what it means to be fully human. And what you don't learn, you don't value. You're taught that success means fitting in, not breaking out. So your inner world quietly gets ignored. The result? A society disconnected from its own power, trained to see the body as a burden, emotions as weakness, stillness as laziness. Kundalini challenges all of that. She reclaims the body as sacred, honors emotion as intelligence, and lifts up inner experience as valid and essential. This kind of thinking is a threat to any system built on external control, because once a person connects with the energy inside, she becomes harder to manipulate. She stops falling for empty promises, stops numbing herself with distractions. She starts hearing her inner truth and acting from that place. And that kind of alignment is revolutionary. That's why Kundalini has been hidden, mocked, and misunderstood in the West. Not because she isn't real, but because she's powerful. Western institutions, academic, religious, political, have systematically stripped the sacred from everyday life, separated mind from body, spirit from science. The result? A culture that's technologically advanced but spiritually starved. We have more access to information than ever before, yet so little wisdom. We can send rockets into space, but struggle to sit quietly with ourselves. And in medicine, what many experience during spiritual awakening, bursts of energy, emotional releases, spontaneous movements, is quickly labeled as pathology. Instead of support, diagnoses are handed out. Instead of tools, pills. This isn't healing. It's suppression. And it's not because doctors are malicious. It's because the system they work in has no framework for inner energy. It wasn't designed to see beyond the physical, wasn't made to understand the soul. But things are shifting, slowly and quietly beneath the surface. More people are waking up, asking different questions, refusing to ignore what they feel inside. They're realizing the real education isn't in the classroom. It's in the breath, the body, the silence, the longing. They're reclaiming practices once labeled primitive. They're remembering the ancients weren't naive. They were initiated, and they're no longer willing to pretend that everything real can be measured in a lab or approved by an institution. Because the truth is, we're born with everything we need. The map is inside us, the energy is inside you, the intelligence is inside you. And the moment you truly believe that, not just in your head, but in your heart, you break free from the cycle of dependence and step into something much stronger. Self-initiation. You don't need permission to awaken. You don't need a certificate to explore your consciousness. What you need is courage, curiosity, and the willingness to unlearn everything that taught you to doubt yourself. Kundalini isn't just for saints or sages. She's in the single mom who meditates before her kids wake up. She's in the quiet seeker tired of surface-level answers. She's in you right now, whether you realize it or not. And once you do, the systems that tried to hold you down don't stand a chance. Kundalini doesn't show up when you want her to. You can't force her open with ambition or call her like a magic trick. She's not a prize for being spiritual enough, or a badge for doing the right rituals. This energy doesn't respond to ego. She responds to readiness. And readiness isn't about how much you know. It's about how much you're willing to unlearn, clear out what no longer serves, and make space for what's already inside you to reveal itself. Preparation isn't optional. It's foundational, because when this energy moves, it moves through everything. Your nervous system, your memories, your emotions, your thoughts. If you're blocked, she'll show you where. If you're stuck, she'll confront you. If you're open, she'll teach you. That's why the first step isn't activation. It's purification, not religious, but energetic. Your system can handle the intensity. Your mind can stay steady even as your identity starts to dissolve. That's why ancient traditions didn't just teach meditation. They taught discipline, daily practice, breathwork, fasting, silence. Not to punish the body, but to refine it, making it a clear vessel free from distractions and chaos. In a world that glorifies stimulation, stillness becomes sacred, and it's not passive. It's powerful. It tunes you into the subtle. It trains you to feel, and it teaches you to witness instead of react. When Kundalini moves, being the witness is everything. Without it, you get overwhelmed. With it, you navigate the intensity. Start with the body, not forcing it, but listening. What does it need to feel safe, connected, alert? Movement helps. Yoga, walking, stretching, not to impress, just to connect. Breath is the bridge. It tells you everything about your state. Shallow breath, scattered mind. Deep breath, anchored presence. Learn to breathe intentionally, not just when you meditate, but as you live. Consciousness doesn't start on the cushion. It starts every time you choose to come back to yourself. Emotionally, preparation means honesty. Can you say how you really feel? Can you sit with discomfort without trying to fix it? Can you forgive the parts of yourself you were taught to hide? This energy will bring up everything you've pushed down, not to punish, but to free you. But freedom isn't light without shadow. If you only want happiness, you're not seeking truth. Truth includes everything: pain, joy, anger, love. The more you can hold, the more you can transform. Mentally, the practice is humility. You're not here to control Kundalini. You're here to surrender to her. That doesn't mean being passive, it means being available, watching your patterns, letting go of the need to label every feeling or explain every change. Let the experience teach you. Don't try to master it. Let it master you until mastery feels natural, not forced. And most importantly, slow down. Awakening isn't a race. It's not about getting somewhere. The energy already knows the way. You just need to stop blocking it. Stop chasing peak experiences, spiritual highs, or enlightenment as a finish line. Kundalini doesn't care about your vision board. She cares about your presence, your integrity, your willingness to feel it all. If you're reading this and something inside stirs, not just curiosity, but something deeper, quieter, more certain, that's a sign. Not that you should chase Kundalini, but that you might be ready to sit quietly enough to find her. The door's already there. The serpent waits. All she asks is that when she rises, you don't shrink back. That when the fire comes, you receive it not as a threat, but as a guide. Discipline isn't restriction. It's devotion, not to a belief system, but to your own unfolding, not to a guru, but to the sacredness of what you carry. You're not preparing for a moment. You're preparing for a lifetime of clarity, a life built not on what you were taught, but on what you remember. When Kundalini rises, she doesn't just change how you feel inside. She changes how you see everything around you. She shifts the lens through which you interpret the world. Things that once grabbed your attention start to fade away. The constant chase for approval, possessions, or validation begins to feel empty. Not because you become indifferent, but because you tune into a frequency deeper than the surface noise. You start to recognize what's real, what deserves your energy, and what's been draining you for years without you even noticing. This is the part of awakening people rarely talk about. Integration, coming home. Because after the fire, the flood, the bliss, and the breakdowns, comes the quiet question, how do I live now? And there's no script, no title to hand you. You simply start moving through the world differently, slower, sharper, softer, fiercer. You speak less, but with more meaning. You listen more with deeper understanding. You begin to see the sacred in everyday moments, the way light falls across the floor, the rhythm of your breath, the truth behind someone's words. Life stops being a blur and becomes a mirror. But with this new vision comes responsibility. Kundalini doesn't make you better than others. She simply makes you more aware. And awareness brings choice. Will you live in alignment or betray what you now know? Will you honor your intuition even if it goes against the current? It's not about being perfect. It's about being real, living without abandoning the truth you've touched. The world will keep moving fast. People will keep selling distractions. But once this energy awakens in you, something irreversible happens. You stop buying illusions. You start to feel the weight of the false. You can't go back to pretending. That doesn't mean withdrawing from life. It means fully stepping into it, but on your own terms. You can still work, pay bills, face challenges. But underneath it all is a stillness that doesn't shake, a clarity that doesn't waver. And that's what true freedom feels like. Living with Kundalini isn't escaping reality. It's expanding it. To see with more eyes, hear with more ears, feel more deeply than ever before. There will be moments when everything feels overwhelming because you're sensing not just the surface, but the currents underneath. But you'll also have moments of deep peace. Not because life is easy, but because you're anchored in something eternal. The ego will try to turn this into status, into being special. Don't let it. You're not awakening to rise above others. You're awakening to reconnect with them, to see the divine in every face, every failure, every breath. That's the real gift of Kundalini. Not power over life, but union with it. You've come far on this journey, not just through ideas, but through reminders. Something inside you already knows what you just read. It's not new, it's an ancient memory resurfacing. Now the question is, what will you do with it? Don't let it stay just information. Let it become integration. Let it live in your choices, your breath, your relationships. Let it shape how you wake up, how you talk to yourself, how you create and contribute. Because awakening isn't something you have. It's something you become, day after day, truth after truth, breath after breath. If this video spoke to you, let us know by commenting. I understand.